things get nasty. The brothers and sisters stop talking to each other. There is a way to avoid it. Hi everyone, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. I am so glad to have you back for another video in my Let's Talk series. By the way, if you are new here, I am Jolene, and this is basically just a place where I talk about personal organization, financial planning, and generally give whatever guidance I can give about how to make boss moves. It's a community as well, so I am really happy to have you here, and I would appreciate if you have any good experience to share, if you would always make sure to be present in that comments section. So today's video is going to be a little bit of an unusual one. I don't typically talk about things like this on my channel, and the topic might be a little bit triggering, so I have to apologize in advance if this is sensitive for you, if this is something that might be uncomfortable to talk about. But I think sometimes just the fact that it's sensitive and it's taboo means that we don't talk about these things, and there are some things that need to be said. So you can see from the title of this video that I am going to be talking to you about what happens when you die. But no, I'm not going to be talking to you about what happens to your soul. I'm going to be talking to you about what happens to your stuff. And the reason why I want to talk to you about this is because I think, and I think I have to be blunt here, I think I just have to say it, plain talk, bad manners. I think my people are very bad, and I mean black people, are very bad at passing on wealth for some reasons that might be fairly obvious, social and historical reasons. We don't have a lot of practice passing on a legacy and making sure that future generations inherit something from us. I don't think we're necessarily bad at building wealth, but I think that we suck at passing it on. And I know that if you're like most of the people who watch my videos, you're probably listening to this right now like, this is not relevant to my life. I'm 28 years old. I am going to be around for quite a while, but the topic that I want to discuss with you has nothing to do with your age. It's really about whether or not you have anything of value. If the worst should happen, what happens to the valuable things that you own? And I want to talk about it because honestly, maybe you've seen this happen as well, but I have seen cases where someone passes away and things get nasty. People change dramatically. Brothers and sisters stop talking to each other. Best friends become enemies. Your aunt, who you loved so dearly, becomes an actual vulture. Like, people turn into monsters. They literally become the worst possible version of themselves. To an extent, it's human nature. To an extent, it's easy to judge, but it is human nature to an extent, and there is a way to avoid it. There is a way to make sure that your loved ones aren't left squabbling if the worst should happen to you. And it really shouldn't be something that you approach like, oh, well, I have lots of time. I don't need to think about that. It's not going to happen to me anytime soon. Because if you would get, for instance, fire insurance for your home, you don't get fire insurance because you're planning to set your house on fire. In fact, you might pay for insurance on your home and nothing bad ever happens. You never get robbed. It never burns down. Nothing bad ever happens until you die. And yet you paid for that insurance. But people, for some reason, particularly in my community, we don't like to plan for the inevitable. We'll all die one day. As long as you have something of value that you want your descendants to benefit from, and especially if you have loved ones who depend on you and who you currently support, for instance, if you have small children, write a will, you're not too young. So before I go any further, I just want you to stop now. Yes, stop. You. Because I know you don't have a will. Maybe you are kind of young to have a will, and maybe you don't actually own anything of a lot of value. If you don't own anything that costs more than, I don't know, $10,000, maybe you're right and this is not super relevant to you, but it might be relevant to somebody that you love. And you might be able to help them out and help out your entire family by sharing this video with them. So I would encourage you to do that. But if you are in a position where you have loved ones who rely on you, maybe you have siblings who you would like to benefit from whatever you have built or bought in your life, should the worst happen to you, I think that this is a good time for you to get a pen and a piece of paper. It is this easy. It's this easy. Now, of course, I'm not a lawyer. Let me just make that clear. I would encourage you to get legal guidance in matters like these as soon as you possibly can. But what we're going to do here, it's a start. Get a pen and paper, and I just want you to write. If you're going to write this by hand, start somewhere in the middle of the page. Or you can write this on your tablet, or you can write it on your notes on your phone, or you can write it on your computer, however you want to write, but stop. Get something in front of you so that you can write. We're not going to start with any kind of fancy legalese like,
I, such and such, being of sound mind, hereby bequeath my such and such.
No. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to write down everything that we own that's super expensive. It could be anything. I don't know your life. It could be a motorbike. It could be your car. It could be your house. Maybe you have a boat. Maybe you have a private jet. I don't know. But write down whatever you own that's expensive. It doesn't necessarily matter if you own it outright. For instance, with your property, even if you're still paying a mortgage, if you were to sell that property, you would probably be left with money in your pocket. And that money, if you were to pass away, would have to go somewhere. It would have to go to someone. So write down a list of things. Try and find at least 3 things that you own that cost a lot of money. Write them one below the other. After that, write an estimated figure for what you have in any private pension funds and investment funds. Now, once you've done that, all you need to do is beside each thing that you've written, write somebody's name, who you love, who you care about, who you want this thing to go to when you pass away. You can write multiple names after one item, that's fine. All we're doing here is brainstorming what we have and where it should go and making that concrete, because a will unfortunately needs to be in writing. It can't just be in your head. It can't be what you told your kids or what you said to your spouse. It has to be in writing. So we're writing this down. Now, if you don't want everything to be split evenly between the people whose names you have put, then feel free to put a percentage after each name. We're making sure to always write and leave a lot of space so that we can do this, right? All right, so now you've done the hard part and probably the most important part, which is that you have decided how you want your estate to be shared. You want your daughter to get all of your fine, expensive jewelry, but your son gets the engagement ring or whatever. You've decided how everything should be shared. But now there are a few other elements. They're all very simple, don't worry, that you need to think about. The first of those elements is that for your will to be valid, you need to establish in the will that you are sane, you're doing this and you are of sound mind, and you have to establish in the will that nobody is forcing you to do it. So above what you have just written, you can write your full name, being of sound mind and acting of my own free will, hereby declare that upon my death, my assets should be divided as follows. You've done that. You have done the second part of writing your will, and you see it was probably a lot faster and easier than the first part. After that, another thing that you need for your will to be valid is an executor who is going to make sure that the things that you have asked to be done and to be shared out in your will are done according to your wishes. Ideally, this should be a neutral party. They will not be inheriting anything from you. And this is part of the reason why it's important to get legal advice where this is concerned. I am not a lawyer. Let me make that very clear. And I absolutely recommend that you get legal advice. And it is actually probably a lot cheaper than you think to have your will drawn up by a legal professional. That is usually the best way to ensure that you have a neutral party assigned as your executor. But if you find someone else who you are sure is going to do things according to your wishes after you have passed, then you can appoint that person to be your executor, but they have to be named in your will. Finally, you have to make sure that you make it clear in your will that this document that you have drawn up is valid over and above any other document that anyone might forge, find, dig up. If you have a previous will and things have changed, you've had additional children, you've remarried or something, I encourage you to destroy the previous will. But in this new one that you've written, make it clear that this is the only valid document pertaining to the sharing of your estate upon your passing. And you can write that however you want. Finally, for your will to be valid, you need to have it witnessed. And once again, much like the executor, your witness should not be one of your children. Your witness should not be your girlfriend. Your witness should not be the neighbor whose land borders yours. And you know that the minute you die, they're going to say, well, actually, I own part of this land. You know, your witness should be a neutral, your witnesses, I should say, because you should have two witnesses present when you sign this will. You can draw it up without witnesses. I hope you just took my advice and drew it up while you were listening to me. But don't sign it until you have two neutral parties to also sign as witnesses to your will. And there you have it. Now, like I said before, I recommend that you get legal guidance on how to ensure that your will stands up in court. And you might be saying to yourself, well, without legal guidance, why would I have even just written anything down? It's not valid. But let me tell you, it is more valid than the non-existent will that you did not have before you wrote anything down. Even if you didn't write anything, hopefully that was food for thought for you. Hopefully this is something that you can share with someone. It is so silly when we work so hard to build something, to achieve something, to build an empire, and then when we pass away, instead of celebrating our life, our loved ones are left scrambling to see what they could get. I don't actually blame people. I think it's sad and it shows a lack of self-control, but I don't actually blame people necessarily because everybody's just out here trying to survive. And I hope that, like me, you really want to see your descendants, your loved ones, your children, your grandchildren succeed. And if you can help, that you would want to do that. So absolutely, it's awkward. I know it's such a weird topic. I've never really done a topic like this, and I don't think I'll do many like this. But it's one of those things that I think we need to talk about because we don't hear about it at school. We don't hear about it at university. And you find people who get kind of far up there in life and they don't have a will. And then they pass unexpectedly and it's utter chaos. Before I wrap up this video, one other topic that I kind of wanted to touch on is what happens when you inherit something, because that's a whole other kettle of fish. Apart from the fact that my people are bad at passing on wealth, I think that inheriting something, it also requires some thought. Because what happens when you inherit a piece of something? Let's say there's a piece of land that your grandfather owned, and when he passes away, he left it in equal parts to all of his grandchildren, but he's got 15 grandchildren. I have witnessed it too many times, and I think it's worth talking about, that people just say, oh, well, I own 1/15 of this plot of land, and they leave it at that. And it's actually pretty silly. I honestly recommend, if you are inheriting a piece of something that you know you are not going to use, get whoever is going to use it to buy your share. And similarly, if you are inheriting something along with a bunch of other people, but you are going to be predominantly using this thing, buy out the people who are not using it. That way the inheritance can truly benefit everyone, because then you can take your 1/15 of the value of this land, and you might be able to use that as a down payment for something else. You might be able to invest that in the stock market. That way the wealth can grow instead of just being continually split up into smaller and smaller and smaller pieces with every generation. So that's another thing that I really wanted to mention, because it's one of those things, I've seen it too many times and it's really sad. I think when someone passes, it really should just be an opportunity for their loved ones to mourn them, to celebrate their life and to move on. And that person can leave a gift for those who live to mourn them. But that gift should not be confusion and strife. Yeah, I hope that you have enjoyed this very unusual video on my channel. I do try my best to fill my channel with interesting and useful content, and it means a lot to me that you are still here at the end of this video. If you did enjoy the video, please do give it a thumbs up. It is 100% free. It takes 2 seconds. It has taken me about half an hour to film this video, and it will probably take me about 3 hours to edit it. So please do give it that thumbs up if you have enjoyed it. Subscribe if you are not already subscribed so that you don't miss another video from me. Check out the entire playlist of the Let's Talk videos if you haven't watched any of them before. In any event, thank you so much for having watched this video, and I really hope that I will see you in my next one. Bye.